welcome to La Marzocco's Coffee Encounters. Coffee Encounters is a show revolving around coffee, food, lifestyle, the company's history, together with live demos and much more. This new format is presented by La Marzocco Home in collaboration with Accademia del Caffè Espresso and streamed once a month on our YouTube channel. Did you know what it is you should look for when purchasing quality coffee? Stay with us and you'll learn all the tips and tricks. Listen to an interview on how the espressos evolved over the years while learning more on thermal stability and PID. Water, the first ingredient of your coffee and the first thing you should learn to choose wisely. These are just a few of the topics you will hear about today, so all you have to do is take a seat, relax, and enjoy experiencing this fascinating adventure.
And welcome again in the brewing lab of Accademia. If you look outside, you already see that the spring is coming, and this is why the tulip for another latte art encounter is the right topic today. So, what is needed to do a nice tulip for your beloved ones? Of course, you need cups or even glasses. You need a pitcher with a spout. This can be a small one, a big one, a silver one, a black one. You need milk. And of course, as a base, you need a nice espresso. So I will start with the preparation of the espresso. Once I have pulled the shot, I will continue with some more in-depth explanation about latte art. I have chosen a coffee which is coming from Ethiopia and it's natural processed because I really enjoy the berry, blueberry, strawberry notes in combination with milk. So first step is that you should be able to find the right espresso for your combination or your cappuccino or flat white or whatever beverage you do with milk so you obtain a good balance between milk and espresso. So now the challenging part is coming, because it's a little bit matter of training. Yes, the pain is real. It's not possible to do latte art immediately. But as you know, no master has fallen from the sky, so it's a normal process. So we have our espressos. I start to steam the milk. After the steaming, of course, comes the cleaning and a purge. And here we go. First, you swirl your milk to have it homogeneous. Then you swirl the espresso, and then you start to pour, move around. You wait until you reach half of the cup, then you change the anchor and you create a circle. You stop, you go a little bit backwards and create another circle, and then you cut it through. That's the two-leaf tulip. So basically, once you understand the position of the pitcher and the timing when you do the circuits, you can even play around and do 3, 4 leaves, 5 leaves, and so on. So, as I said before, the pain is real and latte art needs some practice. If milk is too expensive for you or you don't want to waste it, you can also easily train your pouring technique with water. So you take a pitcher, preferably the one you like to use for latte art, and you can take your glass and you just train to understand the flow. So in the beginning, For example, when I start, this is our espresso. You start to pour in the espresso until you reach a certain level, then you change the position of the glass. You can swirl your water, and then you go nearer with the spout into the vessel, nearer to the surface, you change the anchor, and you start to pour circles. You can even imitate as if you would pour with real milk. And at the end, you do the shortcut and a movement up. I show it once again. So now I will show you one more time on this transparent glass with this time espresso and milk. And I hope it's gonna be more easy to see because it's very difficult to show latte art on the camera. So as I said before, we start with tilting the vessel a little bit and I start to pour under the crema. I'm moving it around, I'm quite fast. Once I reached a good level, I approach with a spout, I create one circle, I go back, I create another circle, I go back, I create the top, and I do a cut through, and I have my beverage. So that's it with tulips for today. I hope you enjoyed this short excursus. I will now enjoy my flat white and see you soon here at Accademia.
Hi everyone, I'm Lavinia Caini, Marketing Coordinator for La Marzocco.
Ciao a tutti.
Hi everybody, I'm Francesco, Tuscany Area Manager for La Marzocco.
Today we're here to talk a bit about the first bits of La Marzocco history. And do you know that the history of La Marzocco starts with a machine that is not a La Marzocco machine, the Fiorenza that we have right here. And why is that? Because in 1927, the year La Marzocco was founded, the Bambi brothers, the two founders of La Marzocco, had nothing to do with espresso machines. They had a small metal workshop and they were producing for third parties. And in 1927 they got commissioned a batch of 10 pieces of the Fiorenza by this man, Ascanio Galletti. Mr. Galletti commissioned Giuseppe Bambi with 10, 12 of the Fiorenza machines and Giuseppe produced them. At the time, espresso machines were not that popular and the market was not so easy. So that's why Ascanio Galletti dropped out of the project really quickly. At that point, Giuseppe had developed this huge passion for the technology that he decided to keep going and build his own brand of espresso machine together with his brother Bruno. And that's when La Marzocco was born and when La Marzocco machines started to exist. And Fiorenza has not always been with us sitting on this counter, but Francesco will tell us more about it, right? Francesco, ci racconti la storia della Fiorenza?
Il ritrovamento della Fiorenza.
I found the Fiorenza by sheer chance. I entered the bar and saw it on display as an antique, along with the panettoni.
Come cimelio insieme ai panettoni. Lì per lì non mi resi conto.
At the time I didn't realize I'd seen a Fiorenza and I returned to the company.
E rientra in azienda. Parlando con Piero,
I talked with Piero and he gave me some tips on its possible whereabouts. He told me it had been sold to a restaurant near the bar where I'd seen it.
Un ristorante vicino al locale in cui l'avevo vista io. Niente, tornai al locale.
So, I returned to the bar to try bringing home the Fiorenza, and after some negotiation we managed to do that, as you can see, and it was great, because anyway we brought a piece of history back to our company.
E è stato bello perché comunque abbiamo fatto rientrare un pezzo di storia all'interno della nostra azienda.
And that's not even the end of the story, because we were lucky enough to find a second Fiorenza, right Franci?
Vero, giusto.
True, right. Again I talked with Piero and he told me that indicatively they had manufactured 5 to 7 specimens, but he couldn't remember.
7 esemplari, però non se lo ricordava. La seconda che abbiamo ritrovato.
The second one that we found via the internet was basically abandoned in an old theater. Some photos cropped up on the internet. It was quite dusty. And when we found it, we traveled to the Marche region, I think there was area. and we went to get it.
Nelle Marche mi sembra le zona fosse quella e siamo andate a recuperarla.
Of course, the Firenze was not the first espresso machine ever created. The first patent for an espresso machine dates back to 1901, and the big innovation brought by espresso machine is the fact that coffee was not pre-prepared. Coffee was espresso, meaning that it was expressly made for you, and that was a big innovation compared to the espresso maker of the 19th century.
Come diceva Piero, la
As Piero said, the Firenze is an espresso coffee machine. To obtain the drink, the machine could be placed on a brazier or heated electrically with gas.
Scaldarla in maniera elettrica o scaldarla tramite gas. Questo serviva per portare...
The water inside the boiler was brought to the boiling point. That's how the espresso was obtained.
Così nasceva l'espresso.
So, even the second Firenze got home, and now it's to be found at Accademia del Caffè Espresso. Thank you for watching.
Grazie a tutti.
Thanks everybody. See you at the Accademia.
Ciao di nuovo! We are back with a small excursus on coffee packaging. I'm happy to see you and
Ciao Nora.
welcome Massimo.
What do you expect of a coffee bag when you buy it? Which information would you like to find in order to better understand the coffee you are going to taste?
So me, I'm someone who's solely buying specialty coffee. So I go, if I want to buy coffee, I mostly visit small coffee shops or artisan roasteries, and the first indication I look at is, of course, the origin country.
Yes, origin is already a very important starting point. There are 70 producing countries in the world, and we should know where coffee comes from, right?
Yes, and also it gives already an indication in which taste journey it will take you. So we have the origin, and as next one, of course, we have the region, because origin is referring to the whole country.
Yes, in a country we can have multiple regions. In Guatemala, for example, we have 8 different regions, all with different characteristics. And then obviously the farm, the plantation, right?
Origin, region, farm.
And farm.
Do you need to have indications about the farmer?
Regarding the farmer, I'd like also to get some information on the quality of the plantation and on the type of cultivation. But I'd also want to find a link, a barcode or something similar on the label, bringing me to the web page of the plantation and allowing me to also see the producer's face.
Così posso conoscere anche la faccia del produttore.
So you mean like a farm ID, so you have, for example, a QR code and you can scan it, and then you can get all the information which you need, because often it's too many information to have them on the etiquette, and as you see, the packaging is not super big, and as you also know, a lot of people are not so into reading when they are buying products. So many coffees are designed with either colors or major indications, and then they still offer the possibility to put, for example, the farm ID through the homepage or through our QR
There are
codes.
also wonderful stories to tell behind every coffee.
So we put the storytelling, and then what about altitude? Is it something you want to have on the packaging?
Yes, altitude is a very important factor. Arabica grows between 900 and 2000 meters above sea level, and the higher the altitude, the higher the coffee quality in terms of density and volatile and aromatic components. One of the few true statements in advertising is that mountain coffee tastes better, because the higher the altitude, the better the coffee
Le
characteristics.
caratteristiche del caffè sono di maggiore qualità.
And also with the altitude we have the soil, right? And with the soil we have also the variety. Not every variety is growing in every altitude and not on every soil.
Knowing the varieties is very important, as especially in the last few years varieties have been changing. Personally, I like the oldest varieties, the ones that are more linked to the Bourbon, the ones that are more linked to the Tipica species, as they are those which have the richest primary flavors. But there are also many others, and they already provide an accurate indication on what I'll find in the cup.
Okay, but you're an expert on everything regarding green coffee. I would say like the variety itself is already level pro. So what is important on the coffee packaging, if you like coffee and love coffee but you are not like super pro, super geek, is of course the processing. That's for me one of the relevant informations because it gives me a hint of what I can expect. Because the processing says if you have a washed coffee, you have a higher acidity, or you can expect a higher acidity, because we start to think from the point we buy a coffee which we don't know from an unknown roastery.
Yes, knowing the type of processing is very important. This is the first processing coffee undergoes. Washed coffees are acid and very clean. Natural coffees are much fuller, much more aromatic and sweeter too. Honey-type intermediate coffee are obviously slightly sweet but also very aromatic. So I think these are important elements to characterize our coffees.
And this pool of processing also started to be a never-ending list because there's so many new trends and new developments in the coffee business. So okay, we have all the origin of the coffee, we have the variety, we have the processing. The next most important indication on the packaging
è il secondo livello di lavorazione.
It is the second processing level, roasting, and it is very important even in special coffees.
Nei caffè anche speciali.
So we have different kind of indications on the packaging. I sum it up as roast style, and as we don't know the roastery, we only can see what is on the packaging. So mostly, or exemplary, you find, for example, an indication of the roast style in symbols. So you have, for example, the mocha, I'm destroying the chart, or a cup symbolizing espresso preparation, versus drip coffee, which is symbolized like this. Or you can have a scale of like different shadows of a color, which tells you, okay, this is like a more developed roast, more dark, more classic, and more it goes in this direction, more light it is. Massimo, which kind of coffee you prefer most?
I like very much the filter coffees with a light or medium to light roasting, as this way I can better appreciate their aromatic characteristic and sweetness.
But you prepare this coffee in the espresso machine, or you
No, I have the French one and I use the gravity brewing systems. For example, I have the V60, which is my favorite one.
Okay. But for espresso, because there is the trend in the coffee business that many roasters don't distinguish anymore between espresso and filter roast. They call it omni roast, so it's one roast style for any kind of preparation, because they see these methods which generalize many methods on the market. As there is the new trend in the coffee business that roasters don't distinguish anymore between espresso or filter roast. It's the so-called omni roast. Because they see and consider coffee as a matter of extraction. So it doesn't matter how you extract it, so you need just one roast style. Linked with the roast style, of course, is a very important indication, which is the date. The date of roast. Because every coffee, depending on the roast style, and it's very difficult to see it on the package. You have to open the coffee to see the actual indication or situation inside. So you have the date, and it's again difficult because we are talking about a natural product to decide how long is the shelf life of this. Of course, you can drink a coffee even 1 year after you bought it, but you will not be very pleased with the flavors and aromas you will find in the package because it's simply a product which is aging. So the lifespan of a coffee which is more or less roasted is shorter than the one which is more developed in roast, because it's linked with the gases which are contained in the beans and also the degassing or the resting period after the roast. Massimo, what about the packaging itself? Does it have any impact on
The packaging
on the
è molto
coffee?
importante.
As for the packaging, it is very important to choose the appropriate package, taking account its sustainability and environmental impact. I always prefer single material packaging, even plastic ones, that can be later easily turned into compost. This way we also save nature as well as ourselves from the issues related to climate change.
legati ai cambiamenti climatici.
So you mean like sustainability is one important thing, and then actually what about the price? How much does specialty coffee cost if I go into a shop?
I prezzi legati agli
Specialty coffee prices are rather high, but one should take into account the great amount of effort and work behind specialty coffee.
fatica, il grande lavoro che c'è dietro a uno specialty coffee. Quindi i prezzi
These
sono
prices are significant and are something we have to take into account.
delle cose che bisogna considerare.
So we are more in the price range of 250 grams, starting from 8-9 euros up.
Si parla dagli 8
Yes,
ai 10
price range
euro,
from 8-10 euro per bag, as many as 70 euro per bag, right? Without naming names. But we should consider sometimes price justifies the product.
A volte il prezzo giustifica il prodotto. E gli aromi?
Oh, mamma mia, we forgot aromi. No, but it's actually, we already mentioned it in this part of the processing. But of course, often you also find the frame on the packaging where you have flavor of, for example,
And flavors, chocolate, citrus, jasmine.
or you have intensity scales, like for taste balance, for tactile balance, so you have an idea how the coffee is structured regarding acidity, sweetness, body, aftertaste, everything. Okay. Is there anything else missing on the package, Massimo? Or are you happy?
No, I'm so happy.
So it's time to say goodbye, alla prossima volta. We are sending you sunny greetings with the Tuscan sunlight. Ciao!
Let's add the mustache too.
Ciao! La prossima volta!
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Accademia del Caffè Espresso. Today we are here in this fantastic old cafe, and today together with me we have Giulian Biondi, who is a very famous mixologist barista in Italy, and we are very glad to have here with us today.
Thank you for hosting me.
And what we are going to do today?
Today we are doing a very typical and very classical Italian drink, which was born in the city of La Marzocco, was born in Florence, a bit more than 100 years ago. So in 1919, there was this nobleman called Camillo Negroni, who gives name to the cocktail himself. And he was a bon vivant, he liked to enjoy life, so he used to travel a lot in the early days of the 20th century. He went to the UK, went to the United States for a couple of years, and once he came back to Italy, he used to go to a very famous cafe of the time, which was the Caffè Casoni. Caffè Casoni as a place to be. You have to go there to enjoy what was the typical aperitivo of the time, which was the Americano cocktail. Why Americano? What's the sense of the Americano word? Because it was a drink actually made with two very typical Italian products, but made the American way. The American way meant that the drink was made with this.
With ice.
Ice was a very sophisticated thing at the time. So you will drink this simple drink made with these two wonderful products, which is the sweet Italian vermouth, so red vermouth, and the bitter, so this bitter liquor.
This is important for the recipe. And you can confirm me that still today this is one of the most common, most famous drink to have for the aperitivo all over the world.
Yeah, it is very famous in Italy and became famous all over the world. Imagine that the first mention of this recipe was found in the 50s in a Cuban bartender book. So it went all over the world in very short time. So the Americano was basically bitter and vermouth with a splash of soda. Made the American way means with ice and soda, because the first American tourists liked to have drinks with soda. And then the Count Negroni one day asked to his fellow bartender, why don't you put some gin inside? We don't know if it was a funny day or a bad day, but actually he wanted to have his Americano a bit more stronger. So we have these 3 equal parts.
And you mix it.
Give it a small stir. And then we add a little slice of orange.
And this is also the perfect season to have the best orange, so we are very lucky at this time of the year.
So at the beginning, this drink was sort of secret between them. You know, we imagine the Count going to this young bartender, Fosco Scarselli, ask, you know, do my thing, do my little drink. But Florence is a very small city, so people eventually start to ask, what is the guy drinking? I want the same. And it became popular in town, popular in Italy, and now we can say popular all over the world.
Cheers. Thank you, Julian. And so, cheers to you too, and hope to see you soon here again at the Accademia Historical Bar. Thank you. Good morning, welcome back to our Accademia del Caffè Espresso. Welcome back to my kitchen. So we are ready to make this special kind of tomato spaghetti because we are going to cook them as a risotto. So we start with some very good olive oil, of course, and with some very good tomato sauce. I just put it in my pan. I just clean the bottle with some water just to make sure to take all the sauce, and we just warm the tomato. When the tomato is warm, so we have to wait just a couple of minutes, we just put our spaghetti inside it. So our sauce is warm and we just going to put the spaghetti inside it. It is very funny to cook. So we are going to put them inside the sauce. And we have to pay attention not to move them too much at the beginning, otherwise we are going to break them. We'll leave them as they are, just a couple of, not minutes, we'll leave them like for 30-40 seconds just in the sauce, and then we are going to add some hot water to cook them. Okay, we are going to add some salt inside it, and we start to add some hot water. I already put the salt inside the water and I just start to add it to our pan. So when you will start that, then when you start to move them a little bit and they start to move, it means that you can start to move them in your pan because you are not going to break them. So you have to pay attention only not to dry your sauce too much and eventually add some hot water again. So we are ready after 9 minutes which is the timing that we have on our spaghetti as cooking time, they are ready. The difference between this kind of cooking and the traditional one is that in this kind, as you can see, the result is very different. It is more creamy. You will have a complete different sensation of the sauce and of the plate you are going to have. So we are going to put our spaghetti in a small plate to serve it to our friends, and we will pay attention to take some of this good sauce. We just complete the dish with some fresh basil and with some olive oil, just a little bit. So thank you, Julian, for being with us. It's always a pleasure to have you here. Thank you again. And till soon, to next time, to next recipe from Accademia. Cheers.
Bye-bye. See you soon.
Hi, my name is Enrico Wurm and I work at the R&D department of La Marzocco. Today I'm going to walk you through a simple diagnostic method to assess the quality of the water that you're using to brew your espresso. In the past few years, La Marzocco has sponsored many university studies in order to better understand where both machines and coffee perform at their best. In particular, we did research on the effects of the water on the materials of our machines and on the espresso taste. We all know that water with no minerals will not extract enough aromatic compounds from your coffee. At the same time, will cause corrosion phenomena in your espresso machine. On the other hand, water with too many minerals will cause lime scale buildup in your machine and will over-extract your espresso. So the question is, what is the best water for your espresso? Well, it depends. It depends on the roast degree, it depends on the bean density, but nobody better than us can say what is the best water for your espresso machine. We can say that you can extract a good coffee and keep your machine healthy when the TDS of your water is around 100 ppm. Before performing the analysis of this bottled water, let's read the label together. TDS. TDS is the total quantity of minerals dissolved in 1 liter of water, expressed in ppm, also known as milligrams per liter. And as we said, it's better if it's around 100 ppm. Hardness says how many of the total minerals will precipitate into lime scale when heated. It's better if between 40 and 90 ppm. pH. pH is the acidity of the water and is better if it is between 7 and 8. So let's perform the test together. First strip. The first strip will detect the quantity of chlorine in the water. Chlorine is a disinfectant used to kill bacteria, but unfortunately it gives a very phenolic taste to the espresso. And chlorine can be removed with activated carbon filters. I will dip the strip in the water. Wait a minute and confront the color on the instruction booklet. Fortunately, in this water there is no chlorine. So let's take the second strip, which is the pH strip. This strip is saying that my pH is around 7, which is neutral, perfect, and calcium hardness is around 80, which is also perfect. Strip number 3 is the total hardness. Dip for a second. The color of the strip is matching the 120 milligrams per liter in total hardness, which is exactly what the label says. Strip number 4 is used to detect the chlorides. Dip it into the water and let it suck until the orange line is colored in black. Once the strip is ready, I can grab it and read the result. To read the result, I will make a confrontation of the discoloring of the strip. Here, as you can see, the strip has discolored below 1, which means that the chloride content of the water is way below 31 ppm. So please make sure you choose the right water, because it's #1 ingredient of your espresso.
Cool, Greg, how is it going, my friend?
In a world of COVID, I guess for me it's okay.
So we have so much to talk about. I think you're one of the more fascinating characters in coffee, and you've come and made this huge impression on an industry, but you're actually not somebody who really works in the industry day in and day out.
Right.
And am I correct that you just retired?
4 years ago.
Has it been that long? Nice. So what were you doing for your day job before you retired?
So I worked at National Institute of Standards and Technology, which I wasn't supposed to tell you when I was employed there because I couldn't use my government job to advance my personal interests. But now that I don't work for them, I was a research engineer in the temperature group at the National Institute of Standards and Technology, and I did work for 30 years in humidity measurement and research and pressure measurement. So I was a measurement scientist engineer in the measurements that we care about in coffee.
That's amazing. So when did you start getting interested in coffee? How does coffee fit into your life early on?
Oh, okay. So I think of coffee as being sort of the fusion of science, engineering, art, and drugs. And so it was a natural, well, for me anyway. So I always kind of liked coffee, and so even when I was younger, I had a Chemex, before there was a third wave or anything like that. And then I was out on the West Coast, so I was a sailor for a long time, and my wife and I were boat racers, and we were out on the West Coast of the U.S. doing a series of races, and we were being housed by this guy who would feed us cappuccinos in the morning, and I was going, okay, I want to learn how to do that. So then I'm like OCD, right, and I started looking into it, and then it's like a rabbit hole, right? Once you start, you're doomed. And so I got more interested, and then I'd fallen into the Alt Coffee news group, and that was the beginning of the end.
So Alt Coffee, that came around a little bit before I got into coffee. I think I came on right as Alt Coffee was fading away and everybody was migrating over to home barista. But what was Alt Coffee like? It seemed like there was a lot of seminal things that really formed where we are today that were happening there.
Yeah, so Alt Coffee was before all these forums. It was a news group, so it was all text, right? And you logged in, and it was populated by people like David Schomer, and John Blackwell was a regular contributor, and Barry Jarrett, who was a guy, he was the quintessential Alt Coffee guy. He was a guy who ran a coffee shop in St. Louis, and he had this Brand X espresso machine that we won't mention, but he noticed that it didn't always make the kind of coffee that it made at other times, and he was sort of interested in if temperature might be something that had an effect. And so he started putting little, you can buy these little thermocouple wires from Omega, right, and just stick them everywhere. And he started doing that, and he discovered that as he used this machine, it got colder and colder and colder and colder, and his coffee tasted awful. So then he presented this stuff to the manufacturer, and the manufacturer pretty much sent him packing. He says, nah, this is nothing, this doesn't affect anything, and that, he got the complete cold shoulder, and that was where things were back then. But David Schomer and John Blackwell had thrown out this, thrown down the temperature gauntlet. We have this problem, how are we going to solve it? And I was really lucky. I just happened into Alt.Coffee right at that time. I mean, I had less than 6 months experience in coffee and started looking at that. So,
I mean, and it was probably pretty fortuitous for Alt Coffee as well to have somebody who studies temperature and pressure for a profession joining in at just that moment when they were trying to really understand what temperature meant for brewing.
Yeah, so it's funny how different industries have, people beat against the wall on something, and the answer lies in, is well known in another one, right? I mean,
yeah.
The chemists will all tell you that chemical reactions are temperature dependent, right? And it's really, usually it's an absolute function of, or a function of absolute temperature, exponential function of absolute temperature. So as the temperature climbs a little amount, when things get hot, the effects are huge, and so should be no surprise. And the measurement and control of it was pretty straightforward in the world that I lived in, where we were controlling temperature to a 10,000th of a degree. The point was that the algorithms for doing the control, that everybody talks about, PID, were, it was common laboratory equipment. You could go buy off the shelf a little box, the ones that we all stuck in the old Lineas and all the old GB5s, and everybody, put a temperature probe in the boiler and hung a PID off the side of them for a long time.
So with that, I mean, there was really sort of a land race at the time of who was going to be the first one to do that and to put the PID controller on the machine, right?
So the way it worked was early February of 2001, right? We're exactly 20 years from when all this is happening. Wow. So early February 2001, and I had suggested on Alt.Coffee, well, the simple solution is to take a laboratory PID controller and control the temperature using a PID controller. And then I was inherently lazy, and I conscripted the parts, but they sat on my bench, and Andy Schechter, who has a company making tofu products.
Yes.
Right? He said, I'll just get one from my business. So he conscripted one, threw it on his machine, and there it was. He did it like first couple of days of February 2001, and John Blackwell and David Schomer were doing it at the same time, but they didn't put their stuff up until later in the month. And as soon as Andy Schechter did it, another guy on Alt.Coffee did it, and then I said, oh geez, I better do it. So I did it a week later. And then
you go for it.
So we had all done that, and then there was the whole measurement. The thing that I contributed was the measurement side, was because I could do that, and it was harder for other people.
And did you have a measurement device before you started tuning, or did you have a measurement device and then start tuning those PIDs?
So the original way that the measurements were done was, so David Schomer had done this deal where he drilled a hole through the bottom of the filter basket, and he glued in one of those little cheap thermocouple wires I mentioned a few minutes ago. And then he would dose the filter basket with coffee, and he'd bend the thermocouple probe around so it was laying on the top, and then he'd put it in and he'd brew a coffee, and he'd make the measurement. And the measurements were really difficult because every time you were brewing a coffee, so it was a big mess. And it took a long time. And also, if the thermocouple was touching the coffee, it got one answer. If it was embedded in the coffee, it would get another answer. If it was in the free space above it, it would get the actual measurement of the water coming in. It was difficult, and quickly on, I made a device that would do the measurement, but used a little needle valve underneath to control the water flow, and that was prone to being plugged up by coffee bits and stuff. But that genesis came, that was the obvious way that was going to go.
Siamo nell'angolo culturale.
We are in the cultural corner of Accademia, and I wish to present a high-quality book, Coffee Makers, by Enrico Maltoni and Mauro Carli. Enrico Maltoni and Mario Carli are two major collectors of coffee machines, from ancient times to today, and have combined into an encyclopedic compendium a series of pictures of all machines from ancient times to today. The book is divided into many chapters, but I wish to bring your attention to the most interesting ones. The first chapter deals with the history of coffee, from the coffee ritual in Ethiopia to the latest espresso machines. Then we have all the coffee makers from the 18th, 19th and 20th century, as well as a series of photos and images of historic coffee makers' patents. Enrico Maltoni is also a mechanic. He's a major collector, but also one of the main repairers of vintage machines. Mauro Carli instead is a collector of historic coffee makers. I recommend this book. It is a very advanced book, very large, with over 2,800 figures and about 800 drawings and a series of photos of coffee-themed postage, letters and stamps. It is a book I recommend, a book to keep in your library, mainly for when you find the old coffee maker in your house and you wish to categorize it, to understand the history of your family and the relationship your ancestors had with the history of coffee.
Let us tell you a story, a 90-year journey in the manufacture of fine espresso machines. It doesn't matter if coffee is our job, our pleasure, or just a moment of personal delight. It's time to look forward and imagine a future that we wish to create. A new chapter that we can write together. Our company bases its strength on its heritage to tackle the new daily challenges. We are explorers of blue oceans, craftsmen who mould metal with skill and care. We are meticulous technicians and designers with love for aesthetics. We are the brutal force of steam and the effervescent gentleness of streaming water. The rush hour of a crowded coffee shop and the smoothness of the last coffee drop in a cup. We look for the perfect balance between tradition and revolution, talent and flair. Sustainability, innovation and imagination are our travel companions. We are one living creature that breathes in time with nature. We are thousands of coffee lovers around the world. It is time to envision new horizons and new adventures. We are ready. Our future is here.